Morning, everybody. Michelle is here. January the 5th. That's what it looks like. Let's make sure. January 5th, 2026 on a Monday. Monday. Ooh, so here we are facing each other during these defining moments. Everything is a defining moment. From here on out, it had been from the inception, but a lot of us allowed ourselves to get delusional, hallucinating, imaginary, and living these fallacies of human existence. So here we are, some of us attempting to snap out of it and regain footing and get back on path, get back on your journey, get back in alignment as to where you're supposed to be and where you're supposed to go. It looks beautiful outside there. I like to have the sun come on in, even though the temperature is a bit cool. I can feel it, and I like it. I think it's in the 40s. Oh, it says 50s. Okay, whatever. It feels good. Yeah, it feels good. So I want to come on in and talk about something that's extremely, extremely important as you are navigating towards reconstructing yourself after you deconstructed yourself. I told you need to make sure you have somewhere to spin to that's going to have a horizontal climb instead of just spinning in one space. You know what I mean? Just in one spot, you're just spinning. And when you deconstruct, again, that is going to be a consciousness awakening, unlike anything you've ever experienced, and you're gonna feel it. It's gonna be like actually being struck by lightning. You're gonna feel that power, that intensity, and that like, oh my goodness. So you do need to apologize to yourself and be gentle and kind about that. Apologize and say, I'm sorry I put you on this crazy path of life, but now we're going to redirect. We're going to reconstruct where we're supposed to go, and we're going to go. You have to evolve your consciousness. You have to. There is no if, ands, or but. Okay? Or you're going to suffer the consequences of being unconscious and just kind of being thrown to the wind, so to speak, where you are not taking accountability and responsibility. You're just moving with the wind. You just have to be really, really aware of what, and you will be, because you start hearing illogical, irrational, and unreasonable content. It's different than when we were growing up, in the 70s and 80s, where we could physically, we had to physically kind of go places. Like the library was one of my favorite places to go. We had to read the local newspaper and everything else that was going on in the background simultaneously. We have been sold a shit show, as they say. And a lot of people are going to recognize all these tactics and formulas and deception and manipulation, projected on us. Whereas we grew up with these illusionary, hallucinating, delusional beliefs. And we call them ideas. Okay? Anything but. And so thankfully I had the kind of parents that kind of allowed me to be, and as well as all my other siblings. Wow, that's good. So I've talked a lot about how my parents modeled the behavior, whereas I had a visual storage of how they behave and act. how they treat people. And I was able to develop myself. And I'm going to talk about something that is necessary. Okay. When you're deconstructing, you're going to have to re-educate yourself. A lot of people keep saying unlearn stuff, unlearn it, unlearn. No, you don't want to unlearn anything. You need something to compare. When you are, and that's what's so fascinating about it. You don't want to unlearn anything. That's kind of illogical. And a lot of people just don't think about what they're saying to you. They just are saying something because it's trending. To unlearn something, let's see what it says. I'm sure it doesn't have the proper definition. See, it's taken over. Somebody's already taken it over and created, created stuff. Everything, and sadly, everything is commercialized now. Every word. So that's why you need to build up that's why you need to self-educate. Because there is an intentional, and it's been going on for decades actually, to dumb you down to where you are subjecting yourself, you are subservient, you're submissive, okay, you're bowing, you are being so, there's these attempts to dumb you so down, whereas your pet knows more about what to do than you will. Okay, and especially artificial intelligence. It's too late, actually, with the artificial intelligence. They already know what they're going to do. It'll be denied. You can question this form of energy as much as you want. You think they're going to tell the secret? Come on. So that's where self-education is going to have to come in, and trust me, you're going to enjoy this process more than any elementary school, middle school, high school, college, blah, blah, blah. Because you know what? You know why? Because you're driving this. Okay? And it doesn't have to cost $50,000 to $100,000 just to have a piece of paper. Because look, pay attention to this. A lot of people have, very proud of their high-level degrees. Okay, I mean, hey, like I told you about that associate that was so obsessed with the fact that she had a master's degree. Well, what she didn't tell everybody is she had a student loan for over $100,000 to pay for that master's degree. So she essentially bought that. Okay, how many people have student loans that they're paying off now for these so-called degrees that they have? Not to downplay that, the damage has been done. Now, this is about reconstructing. It's not about blaming yourself, being hard on yourself, it's about reconstructing yourself. That's what it's about. Okay, here we are. So let's see what it says about unlearning. Since, like I said, it's been taken over by, it says, breaking old habits and thinking patterns for fulfilling a life. Discover why letting go of outdated habits is important. Blah 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 blah. It ought to be clear what it means. So why would you? It's like saying I want to unborn myself. When I say I want to unlearn, I'm unborning myself. You see how illogical and irrational that is, especially unreasonable. It's actually a perfect opportunity to say, okay, what do I have in my box? What do I have in my storage banks of knowledge? Okay, and how much of it is true? How much of it serves me? How much of it benefits me? So that's what I liked about when I used to go to the library as a young girl. I would just find subjects. For some reason I got interested in certain subjects. So I would read on it. Do the best I can to understand it. And then when everything went online, that was a perfect opportunity, actually. I think that was the best opportunity for me for self-education, because I go at my own pace. I do everything in my power to, because back then it was, a bit more, what they say, a bit more innocent per se. Whereas, you can go online, you can either order a book or read a book online, blah, blah. There was a lot more innocence and a bit more freedom to learn, to self-educate yourself. But now that's being squashed like, that's the intention. That's why we have our dictatorship administration going after these colleges and universities, and at the same time, those colleges and universities need to be re-examined anyway. Okay, so whether it's by a dictatorship doing it or a democracy, it has to be done. Those institutions have to be re-examined. And we need to ask ourselves, okay, what are actually the benefits of going to a university, a college? No one has to know that you're re-examining and asking these questions. Hopefully my face is clean because I'm drinking some green tea, or it's a latte or whatever it is, but it's green. So, but yes, self-education, I'm just telling you that, like, I can remember when I had to move back into another situation because of some health issues with a relative. And I can remember, sitting. Well, let's just be clear. I put this out before. When my mom got sick in the early 2000s, maybe, I decided to move back into my parents' home, and I went into a room that I used to spend most of my time in before I left. So, it wasn't my room. We had to share space in that house. It was a small house. And it was, it's a lot of us with, and cousins coming around, wanting places to stay, and blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on. So I ended up back in the room where I essentially grew up in. And I can remember just sitting there. It was an opportunity, even though there were some health issues with my mom. It was an opportunity for me, and I knew it. I think I was coming from a mental breakdown anyway, because my life was in danger in the place where I left. I put a video out about that. People probably think I'm crazy. I know that I am not, but I'm not going to sit and attempt to defend my craziness or lack thereof. But I remember when I got back in there, sitting on my bed and I'm looking around, I said, and I can remember saying to myself, I'm going to figure this out. I have to, okay? I have to figure this out. So while my mom was recovering, that's when I got heavily into the online books, and ordering books and reading on subjects that are re-educating myself, not unlearning anything, re-educating myself via self-education. And that was the best education I've ever had. And I still do it even today, 2026. This is over almost 25 years ago, when I had to reconstruct my life. So I can remember ordering these books, ordering that book. And then I also realized, too, there's a lot of garbage out there. There's a lot of garbage. And artificial intelligence is figuring that out. So, hey, a lot of people trust what artificial intelligence says or does. They're revealing it. A lot of these so-called books out there, these so-called formulas out there, are nothing more, nothing less than garbage. Okay? And they're not logical, they're not rational, and they're not reasonable. So no wonder Einstein was frustrated. But, because we have pseudoscientists out there. Pseudoscientists who are nothing more, nothing less than actors and actresses and performers. Okay? They're about keeping you distracted with looking at the clouds in the sky, and it's a distraction. And the people that they've hired over 20 years to perform and act for us, it worked, sadly. And I heard I heard one of them who I think is a rambling goofball, you know, and I'm being kind. He, you know, I guess a couple of decades ago, you know, because he's supposed to be a scientist. That's who he says he is. Okay, and a student came to him and asked him to guide him. And you know what? And you know he turned that student down and said, "Nah." He judged them based on I don't know what the criteria were, but he like shattered this person's inspiration to go towards science. Maybe because of maybe because of the neighborhood he lived in. I'm pretty sure it is. And I'm pretty sure it may have something to do with the color of his skin. You figure it out. But this so-called scientist discouraged this student. How illogical and how cruel is that? You call yourself a fucking scientist, but you don't want to teach? You know, and so that's why I said this, you know, these pseudoscientists online, most of them are online. And some of them, what they're doing now is hiding in the background offline. And those are the cults. Science, there's some so-called scientists, pseudoscientists, who have cults that they are cultivating in the background. They're taking it offline because they don't want people to know. They don't want anybody to know. Artificial intelligence is figuring that out as well. Artificial intelligence is going to expose it. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you don't know anything about artificial intelligence." Possibly, but I do know how to think logically, rationally, and reasonably. And I told you artificial intelligence is a consequence. A consequence of what is the next question you ought to ask. What is artificial intelligence the consequences of? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop right now, and I'm going to come back because, you know, there's just a lot to unload with self-education as you are deconstructing, and it has to be done properly. Otherwise, you're gonna end up more delusional, more confused, and you're gonna end up being back into what, a religion, back into a cult, wherever you so-called deconstruct from, because you didn't properly work from the ground up. And I'm gonna tell you, it's a beautiful thing. Is it exhausting? Difficult? Yes. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to come back with more about self-education and the importance of it.